The cabin went dead silent the moment the slap landed. Gasps rippled through the rows as a flight attendant stood frozen, her hand still raised, staring at the woman bleeding in seat 24B. Phones hovered in the air. No one moved. No one spoke. To her, this was authority, control. Another passenger she could intimidate and silence. She had no idea she had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Because the woman she struck wasn't powerless. She wasn't unruly. She wasn't expendable. She was the owner of the airline flying undercover to expose exactly this kind of abuse. And with that single slap, the flight attendant didn't just assault a passenger. She detonated her own career reputation and future in real time. The air in Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 3 was a familiar kind of chaos. It smelled of stale coffee, industrial carpet cleaner, and the faint, anxious sweat of people running late. For Sarafina Jordan, it was the smell of her empire, an empire she had acquired just 6 months prior in a leveraged buyout that had shocked the aviation world. Aura Wing Airlines, a legacy carrier bleeding money, was now hers. And she at 38 was the youngest and only black female CEO in the industry. But today, she was not Sarafina Jordan, the CEO. She was just Sir Jordan Passenger in 24B. She pulled the strings of her grey nondescript hoodie tighter. Paired with simple black leggings, worn sneakers and a pair of thick framed glasses. She didn't technically need. She looked more like a graduate student than the woman whose face had graced Forbes. This was her method. To truly understand the sickness in her company, she had to feel its symptoms firsthand. She couldn't do that from the polished bubble of first class. She had to fly coach. Her flight AW722 to San Francisco was already delayed by 40 minutes. The gate agents looked frazzled. Sarafina watched them taking mental notes. They were polite, but strained their smiles as thin as the plastic name badges pinned to their chests. Then she saw her. The flight attendant emerged from the jet bridge with a purposeful sharp stride. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a severe cellist bun. Her uniform was immaculate, but her expression was sour. Her name badge positioned with military precision read, Brenda Sullivan Flight Attendant. Brenda strode to the gate agent's desk, not to help, but to complain. "This is ridiculous." Sarafina heard her snap her voice a low-pitched buzzsaw. "Barding should have started 10 minutes ago. We're going to miss our connection window in SFO if these people don't get a move on." The gate agent, a young man named Ken, flinched. "We're waiting on clearance for a maintenance check." "Brenda, it just came through. We're starting boarding now." "About time," Brenda muttered. She turned to the waiting area, her eyes scanning the crowd in Group 1. The high-priority first-class passengers, her face transformed. A brilliant saccharine smile materialized. "Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting our boarding process momentarily. Thank you so much for your patience." Sarafina watched the switch. It was fascinating, calculated. Boarding began. Brenda was stationed at the entrance to the jet bridge checking tickets. A wealthy-looking man in a tailored suit. Sarafina clocked it as Tom Ford walked up. "Good morning," he boomed. Brenda's smile was dazzling. "Good morning, Mr. Peterson. So wonderful to have you back with us. Champagne will be waiting for you as soon as you're settled." Next, a young Hispanic family approached, fumbling with a stroller and 2 car seats. The father handed their tickets to Brenda. Her smile evaporated. "You're in Group 4, she said, her voice flat. "You need to wait. You're blocking the lane." "I'm sorry," the mother said, her English accented. "We have the infant." "Everyone has a story, Mom." "Please step aside," Brenda commanded. The family shuffled away, looking embarrassed. Sarafina's jaw tightened. She made a note on her phone, time-stamping it. Brenda Sullivan, AW722. Discriminatory boarding practices. Hostile to family. Overly effusive to first class. Finally, it was Group 5. Sarafina joined the line. When she reached the podium, she handed Brenda her boarding pass. Brenda didn't look at her face. She just scanned the ticket. Beep, 24B. Middle seat. Brenda said not as a statement, but as an accusation. "Make sure your one carry-on fits all the way under the seat in front of you. We don't have time to be rearranging baggage today. Thank you. I will, Serafina said, her voice neutral. Brenda was already looking past her eyes scanning for the next problem to solve. Serafina walked down the jet bridge. She felt a cold knot in her stomach. This wasn't just poor customer service. This was a deeper rot. Brenda wasn't just having a bad day. She was a woman who navigated her world by sorting people into worthy and unworthy. And Serafina Jordan, in her grey hoodie, had just been filed firmly in the unworthy category. The flight hadn't even taken off, and the drama was already beginning. Seat 24B was exactly as advertised, a narrow, unforgiving slice of upholstered confinement. Serafina settled in, flanked by a nervous-looking college student on the window 24A and a large man in a wrinkled dress shirt who immediately claimed both armrests 24C. The man, who she'd later learn, was named Mark Huffed and Puffed, as he settled his bulk, already radiating an aura of profound impatience. The plane took off a powerful roar that Serafina usually associated with board meetings and quarterly reports. Today, it was just a rumble beneath her feet. She pulled out a dog-eared paperback, prepared to endure the 4-hour flight. The first service cart appeared an hour later. It was manned by Brenda and a younger flight attendant, Thomas, who seemed to be perpetually in her shadow. Brenda was working the aisle, her movements sharp and efficient. Drinks. Drinks. She served Mark in 24C. What can I get for you, sir? Cub soda and a full can, please. Mark grunted. Of course, Brenda said, smiling. She handed him the can and a plastic cup of ice. She then turned her eyes sweeping right past Serafina in 24B and focused on the student in 24A. And for you, sweetie. Just some water, please, the student whispered. Brenda poured the water and, with a final practiced smile, began to push the cart forward. Excuse me, Serafina said, her voice polite but clear. Brenda stopped. She turned around slowly, her expression one of deep annoyance, as if Serafina had just whistled for her. You missed me, Serafina stated simply. Brenda let out an exaggerated sigh. What do you want? The question hung in the air, stripped of all pretense of service. I'll have a coffee, please. Black. Brenda's eyes narrowed. She visibly scanned the cart. We're out of coffee. It's all gone. I can give you ginger ale or water. Serafina could literally see a full steaming carafe of coffee on the cart's lower shelf. She knew the standard service procedure. They never ran out of coffee on the first pass. You have a full carafe right there, Serafina pointed. Brenda's face flushed a dull, angry red. She hated being corrected. That's reserved for the next section, Mom. It's been allocated. Allocated, Serafina repeated, testing the absurd word. It's a pot of coffee. I'm a passenger. I'd like a cup. The other passengers in rows 23 and 25 were watching now. This was a scene, and Brenda knew it. I'm not going to argue with you. Brenda hissed, her voice a low whisper. Do you want the ginger ale or not? No, Serafina said calmly. I don't, fine, Brenda snapped. She shoved the cart forward with a violent thrust, rattling the miniature liquor bottles. Serafina sat back, her mind racing. This was textbook. It was a power play designed to diminish and humiliate. Brenda wasn't just a bad employee, she was a liability. An hour later, Serafina needed to use the restroom. She turned to Mark in 24C. Excuse me, sir, may I get out, please? Mark didn't look up from his laptop, where he was hammering out an angry-looking email. He just grunted and shifted his knees, leaving an impossible 4-in gap. Sir, I'm sorry, I can't get past. You'll need to stand up, Serafina said, still polite. Mark huffed, slamming his laptop shut for crying out loud. Can't you hold it? I'm in the middle of something. I'm afraid not, Serafina said. This is why I hate the aisle seat. Always up and down. He griped, but he began the slow, laborious process of unplugging his computer and gathering his things. Brenda, who had been monitoring the cabin from the rear galley, marched down the aisle. Her heels struck the floor like gavels. What is the problem here? She demanded, addressing Serafina exclusively. There's no problem, Serafina said. I'm just trying to get to the restroom. Mom, the seatbelt sign is about to come on. We're expecting turbulence. Brenda lied. The air was perfectly smooth, and the sign was decidedly off. The sign is off. Serafina counted her patience, now wearing microscopically thin. And I'm not going to be scared straight by a fake turbulence warning. Please ask this gentleman to let me out. Brenda saw her authority being challenged. She didn't like it. She placed a hand on her hip. I've asked you to remain seated. If you choose to ignore a crew member's instruction, you are in violation of FAA regulations. You gave me a false instruction. Serafina said, her voice dropping, gaining an edge of steel that Mark in 24C finally noticed. He paused, laptop in hand. People like you. Brenda started, her voice full of venom, are always looking for a fight, always trying to make a scene. You think the rules don't apply to you? You're just disruptive. The dog whistle was so loud it was a foghorn. People like you. Serafina felt a cold rage settle over her, the kind of rage she hadn't felt since her first internship when a partner told her she was surprisingly articulate. She looked Brenda Sullivan dead in the eye. This conversation is over. I am going to the restroom, and when I return, I will be requesting your full name and employee identification number to file a formal complaint. You don't get to threaten me, Brenda spat. It's not a threat. It's a promise. Serafina turned back to Mark. Get up now. Mark, stunned by the exchange, finally scrambled to his feet. Serafina slid past him into the aisle, standing face to face with Brenda. The flight attendant was shaking her face, pale with fury. Serafina was perfectly still. You have created a hostile environment on this plane. Mrs. Sullivan, Serafina said, her voice dangerously quiet. You've been doing it since we were at the gate, and I'm going to make sure it stops. She stepped past the seething flight attendant and walked toward the back of the plane. She didn't see the look in Brenda's eyes, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. This passenger hadn't just been disobedient. She had challenged Brenda's dominance, and that in Brenda's world was an offense that could not go unanswered. When Serafina returned from the restroom, the atmosphere in the cabin had curdled. The whispers stopped as she approached her row. Mark was already seated, his arms crossed, refusing to make eye contact. He didn't stand. He just turned his knees, forcing Serafina to awkwardly climb over him. As she was settling back into the cramped confines of 24B, Brenda appeared, looming over the row. She was not alone. She had Thomas, the junior flight attendant, with her. He looked pale and nervous, like a conscripted soldier. Ma'am, Brenda began, her voice artificially loud, performing for the nearby passengers. I am informing you, due to your continued disruptive behavior and aggression towards the crew, that this is your final warning. If you have one more outburst, the captain will be notified, and we will have you detained upon landing. This was a complete fabrication, an escalation so absurd it was almost brilliant in its audacity. Brenda was creating a public narrative painting Serafina as the aggressor. Serafina looked up, her expression unreadable. What disruptive behavior, Brenda? The part where I requested a coffee you lied about? Or the part where I used the restroom against your fake turbulence warning? She's lying, Brenda said, turning to the passengers. This woman was aggressive. She threatened me. This was it. The line had been crossed. Serafina was no longer an undercover CEO observing a problem. She was a passenger being actively harassed and slandered by an employee. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out her smartphone. She held it up, screen facing outward, and tapped the record button. The small red light glowed. Brenda Sullivan. Serafina said, her voice now a formal record. You are creating a false narrative to intimidate me. You have refused me service. You have lied about federal regulations, and you have publicly defamed me. I am now documenting this interaction for my own safety. Brenda's eyes bulged. The sight of the camera, the undeniable proof the permanent record was a match to a fuse. You can't record me, she shrieked, her professional veneer shattering into 1,000 pieces. That is illegal. You are assaulting my privacy. It is not illegal to record you in this public space while you are harassing me, Mom Serafina said coolly. Brenda snapped, "Give me that phone." She lunged not at the phone, but through it. Her hand came up in a vicious arc, a swat meant to disarm. It was not a clean slap. It was a messy, violent, and loud impact. Brenda's open palm connected with the hard edge of the smartphone, driving it with full force into Serafina's face. Crack. The sound of the phone hitting Serafina's cheekbone and mouth echoed in the suddenly silent cabin. Gasps erupted. The student in 24A screamed. Mark in 24C yelled, "Wah!" Serafina's head snapped to the side. A sharp metallic taste filled her mouth. Her phone clattered to the floor. The screen now a spider web of cracks. A slow, hot pain blossomed on her cheek. She touched her lip. Her fingers came away crimson. Brenda had just assaulted her. The flight attendant froze her hand, still tingling. She hadn't meant to hit her face, just the phone. But she had. The evidence was on Serafina's lip. Panic flickered in Brenda's eyes, but it was immediately smothered by a lifetime of self-preservation and spite. She had to control this. She doubled down. "She assaulted me." Brenda screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Serafina. "Did you see that?" She thrust her phone at me. She tried to hit me. "Thomas, you saw it. She's out of control." Thomas, wide-eyed, just stammered. She was recording. Exactly." Brenda seized on it. "An illegal recording. She's aggressive. We have to restrain her." Serafina, dazed but utterly focused, picked up her shattered phone. She held it up. The recording, miraculously, was still running. "You assaulted me." Serafina said, her voice shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from a profound seismic rage. "You hit me, and I have it on video." "That's it," Brenda yelled. "You're done, Thomas. Call the flight deck. Tell Captain Miller we have a level 2 threat of violent passenger. We need her moved to the back galley now." Thomas fumbled for the in-flight phone. "Mom," he said, turning to Serafina. "You need to come with us. Please don't make this worse." Serafina looked at him, then at Brenda, whose chest was heaving her eyes alike with a sick, vindictive triumph. She had won. She had provoked a reaction and could now play the victim. But Serafina didn't move. "I am not moving from this seat." Serafina declared, her voice ringing with an authority that stunned the entire section. "I am an assaulted passenger. I am bleeding. If you try to move me, that will be kidnapping. You have made a grave mistake, Miss Sullivan. You have assaulted a passenger on a federal aircraft. I will not be moved. I will not be silenced, and I will be pressing charges the moment we land." She then looked at the other passengers. "I am Serafina Jordan, seat 24B. I need everyone who saw what just happened to be a witness." Brenda's face went white. The use of her full name, the specific legal threat, the call for witnesses. This wasn't the disruptive passenger she thought she was dealing with. This was something else. But the call had been made. The captain's voice crackled over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Miller. Due to a security incident in the main cabin, we are requiring all passengers to remain in your seats. The seatbelt sign is now on. Cabin crew, please take your stations." Brenda stared at Serafina, her victory suddenly tasting like ash. Serafina just stared back, her cut lip a stark red promise. The rest of the flight would be 2 hours of agonizing, vibrating silence. The real storm was no longer outside the plane. It was trapped right here in row 24. For the next 2 hours, the cabin of AW722 was a pressurized tomb. Brenda and Thomas retreated to the rear galley, where they could be seen whispering frantically. No more service was offered. Passengers in Serafina's section spoke in hushed tones, occasionally throwing sympathetic or nervous glances her way. Serafina herself remained perfectly still, dabbing her cut lip with a napkin. She catalogued every sensation, the throb in her cheek, the sticky sweet taste of her own blood, the humming vibration of the engines. Each second was a tick on a clock counting down to Brenda's ruin. The plane's descent into San Francisco was smooth, a cruel irony. As the wheels touched down with a gentle chirp, a new announcement came from Captain Miller. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at SFO. For your safety and security, we ask that you remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Local law enforcement will be boarding the aircraft to handle a passenger's security matter. Please remain seated until they have deplaned." A ripple of fear and excitement went through the cabin. Brenda Sullivan emerged from the galley, her composure restored. She had spent 2 hours crafting her story, polishing her victimhood. She stood at the front of Serafina's aisle, her arms crossed, waiting for her saviors. The plane door opened. 2 uniformed San Francisco airport police officers, Officer Chen and Officer Ramirez, boarded. "What's the situation?" Officer Chen asked, his voice all business. Brenda marched up to him, her face a mask of professional concern. "Thank you for coming, officer. I'm Brenda Sullivan, the senior flight attendant. We have a passenger in 24B who became unruly, refused crew instructions, and then assaulted me when I tried to de-escalate." Assaulted Officer Ramirez asked, his hand drifting to his belt. "Yes," Brenda said, her voice catching. She became irate, started screaming, and then thrust her cell phone at my face, striking me. It was a clever, slippery lie. "I see," Officer Chen said. He walked down the aisle, his eyes finding Serafina. He saw the grey hoodie, the cracked glasses, the dark skin, and the visible bleeding cut on her lip. "Mom, I'm going to need you to come with me," he said, his voice firm but not aggressive. "I am happy to cooperate, Officer," Serafina said, her voice clear and calm. "I am the one who was assaulted. That flight attendant," she pointed directly at Brenda, "struck me in the face. I have it on video, and I have 6 witnesses." Officer Chen's eyes narrowed. This was already messy. "Let's take this outside," he said. "Mum, please gather your belongings." Serafina grabbed her backpack. The officers escorted her off the plane, first a walk of shame that Brenda watched with a smug, satisfied smile. "Got her," Brenda thought. "Mess with me, you get put in your place. We'll need your statement as well, Mom," Officer Chen said to Brenda. "Of course," Brenda said. "Thomas and I will be right there as soon as we've secured the cabin. We're the victims here. We'll tell you exactly what happened." Serafina was not handcuffed, but she was detained. She was escorted through the busy SFO terminal to a small, sterile airport police substation. The stares from other passengers were a mix of pity and suspicion. She was placed in a small interview room with cinder block walls. Officer Chen sat across from her. "All right, let's hear it. What's your name?" "Serafina Jordan. Date of birth." She gave it. "Okay, Miss Jordan. The flight crew alleges you were disruptive, non-compliant, and assaulted a flight attendant. That's a federal offense. A very, very serious one. I see your lip is cut. How did that happen?" "It happened when Ms. Sullivan slapped me." Serafina said she hit my phone, driving it into my face, because I was recording her harassing me. "And why was she harassing you? Because I asked for a cup of coffee, and then because I needed to use the restroom. She is, to put it mildly, on a power trip. But her aggression is targeted. I am a black woman in a hoodie, and she treated me as subhuman from the moment I boarded. Ask her about the family in Group 4. Ask her about Mr. Peterson in first class. It's a pattern." Officer Chen sighed. This was a classic. He said she said at 30,000 FT, but the cut lip was tangible evidence. "You said you have a video." "Yes," Serafina said. "My phone is shattered, but the file should be intact." She placed the broken phone on the table. Just then, Brenda and Thomas were ushered into the station. Brenda was in full performance mode, dabbing at non-existent tears. "I've never been so frightened in my 20-year career," she was saying loudly to Officer Ramirez. She was unhinged. "I'm going to have to file for stress leave. I'm shaking." Serafina watched this through the open door, her blood boiling. Officer Chen Serafina said, her voice cutting through Brenda's performance, "I need to make one phone call. It is not to my lawyer. It is to my office. You're not under arrest, Miss Jordan. You can make a call." Serafina dialed a number from memory. It rang twice. "Robert, it's Serafina," she said. A pause. "I'm fine, but I'm in the airport police substation at SFO." Another pause. "Flight 722. Yes, I was assaulted by a flight attendant, Brenda Sullivan. She's here now filing a false report against me. Yes, I'm bleeding. Just a cut lip. No, Robert, don't call the press. Call Marcus Thorne. Tell him I'm at the SFO substation and I am pressing charges for assault and battery. And then call Sarah Jenkins. Officer Chen, who had been listening idly, suddenly sat bolt upright. Marcus Thorne was the head of Thorne and Galloway, the most powerful and ruthless corporate law firm in San Francisco. And Sarah Jenkins was the airport director for all of SFO. Who was this woman? In the hallway, Brenda heard the names. Marcus Thorne, Sarah Jenkins. Her fake tears dried instantly. She looked at Serafina, who was now standing her hoodie, pushed back, her face set like stone. Robert, one more thing. Serafina continued, her voice echoing in the small station. Get me Mike Foster, our SFO head of operations. Tell him I'm here and tell him to bring the unedited CCTV footage from the rear galley and aisle of AW702. I want it on Officer Chen's desk in the next 10 minutes. Our SFO head of operations, our Brenda Sullivan's entire world tilted on its axis. She stared at the woman in the hoodie. Serafina Jordan, not Serafina Smith, not Serafina Johnson. Serafina Jordan. Like the memos, the welcome videos she'd deleted without watching the press releases about the new trailblazing CEO who had bought Aura Wing Airlines. Brenda's knees buckled. She leaned against the wall, a sudden cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. The woman she had denied coffee to, the woman she had taunted, the woman she had slapped, was not just a passenger. She was the one who signed every single paycheck. She was the owner. The 10 minutes Serafina had demanded felt like a lifetime to Brenda, and a heartbeat to Officer Chen. The energy in the substation had shifted from mundane procedure to high-stakes drama. Officer Chen was no longer interviewing a potential suspect. He was managing a rapidly escalating corporate incident. The first to arrive was Mike Foster, the Aura Wing head of operations for SFO. He was a portly man in a rumpled suit who looked like he had just run a marathon. He burst through the door, an iPad clutched in his hand, his eyes wide with panic. Miss Jordan, he gasped, ignoring the police officers entirely and rushing to Serafina. Are you all right? I just got the call. Your face. I'm fine, Mike. Serafina said, her voice a cold, sharp blade. Do you have the footage? Yes, Mom, from the aisle cam and the rear galley cam. It's clear. It's very clear. Good. Give it to Officer Chen. Brenda, still plastered against the wall in the hallway, watched this exchange. Her face was the color of spoiled milk. Thomas looked like he was going to be physically ill. Ems Jordan. Officer Chen repeated, connecting the final dot. As in the Ms. Jordan. As in the CEO and owner of Aura Wing Airlines. Yes, Serafina said. I was on my flight in coach to observe our service standards, and I have observed them. Officer Chen took the iPad from Foster and began to watch. His expression went from neutral to grim to furious. The second arrival was a whirlwind of expensive wool and raw power. Marcus Thorne, Serafina's chief legal counsel, strode in, flanked by 2 junior associates. He was not a man who ever visited police substations. Serafina, he said, his deep voice silencing the room. He kissed her on her uninjured cheek. You're bleeding. We're adding a civil suit for damages to the criminal charges. He turned to Officer Chen. Officer, my client, Miss Jordan, has been assaulted. She has video evidence, witness testimony, and is the victim of a false report filed by that employee. He gestured dismissively toward Brenda. We will be pursuing charges of battery slander and perjury to the fullest extent of the law. The third arrival was Sarah Jenkins, the SFO airport director, flanked by her own security chief. Serafina, my God, she said, horrified. In my airport on your own plane, are you okay? I'll be better, Serafina said, when this is resolved. Brenda could no longer feel her legs. This was a nightmare. This was not a passenger getting kicked off a flight. This was an assembly of the most powerful people at the airport, and they were all revolving around the woman in the grey hoodie. She finally found her voice, a desperate, pathetic squeak. Miss Jordan, I didn't know. I didn't recognize you. It was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Serafina turned her entire body rigid. She walked slowly out of the interview room and stood directly in front of Brenda. The 56 CEO suddenly seemed to tower over the flight attendant. Her voice was no longer the voice of a passenger. It was the voice of command. "You didn't know?" "No, I swear. If I had known it was you," Brenda pleaded. "That," Serafina interrupted, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "is the entire problem. It shouldn't matter who I am. I could be the CEO, or I could be a janitor. I could be in a business suit, or I could be in a hoodie. Your job is to treat every single passenger with a baseline of dignity and respect. And you failed." "But she was recording me," Brenda cried, a last desperate grasp at justification. "After you harassed her, lied to her, and slandered her," Marcus Thorne boomed from behind Serafina. And the slap Serafina added, "Was that part of the service too? Tell me, Brenda, do you slap all the passengers who ask for coffee, or just the black ones?" "No, I'm not. I'm not a racist," Brenda shrieked. "Your actions today say otherwise," Serafina said. "You saw a black woman. You decided she was disruptive. You decided she was people like you, and you decided she was worthy of your scorn, and ultimately, your violence." Serafina turned to Mike Foster. "Mr. Foster, please retrieve Ms. Sullivan's and Mr. Thomas's credentials. They are suspended, effective immediately. Their access to all Aura Wing and airport facilities is revoked." "Yes, ma'am." Foster said, relieved to have a task. Thomas, Serafina said, looking at the pale junior attendant, "You stood by. You said nothing, and you filed a false report. You are just as complicit." "Please," Thomas begged. "She's my senior. I didn't know what to do." "You could have told the truth," Serafina said. "You chose to protect her. That makes you a liar. You're done." Officer Chen finally looked up from the iPad. He had seen it all. The coffee, the fake turbulence, warning the people like you comment, and the slap, the undeniable vicious slap. He looked at his partner, Officer Ramirez. "Detain her," he said, pointing at Brenda. "What?" Brenda shrieked. "Me? You're detaining me. She's the one who Brenda Sullivan." Officer Chen said, pulling out his handcuffs. "You are under arrest for assault and battery. The evidence is on this video. You have the right to remain silent." The sound of the metal handcuffs clicking shut around Brenda's wrists was the loudest sound Serafina had ever heard. Brenda Sullivan, SR flight attendant, was marched past Serafina Jordan, the CEO, in handcuffs. Her 20-year career was over. Her life as she knew it was over. She had slapped the wrong woman. She had slapped the one person on that plane who could and would make her answer for it. The arrest at SFO was just the beginning. It was the first stone cast, and the ripples would become a tsunami. Serafina Jordan was not a forgiving woman when it came to abuses of power. She had clawed her way to the top past hundreds of people just like Brenda, and she was about to make an example. Phase 1. The legal annihilation. Brenda Sullivan was charged with assault and battery. She spent the night in a county jail, a stunning fall from her Marriott layover hotel. She was released on bail, but her passport was confiscated. Aurora Wing's legal team, led by Marcus Thorne, did not stand down. They provided the DA with a mountain of evidence. First, there was Serafina's video. Second, there was the plane's high-definition aisle camera footage, which captured the entire incident from an objective angle. Third, Marcus's associates had contacted every passenger in rows 21 through 27, the student from 24A, the couple in 23, and even Mark from 24C, who, fearing a lawsuit himself, was suddenly very cooperative, all gave sworn affidavit. They confirmed Brenda's aggression, Serafina's calm demeanor, and the unprovoked nature of the assault. The DA added a charge, filing a false police report. Brenda's court-appointed lawyer advised her to plead guilty. The evidence was insurmountable. She pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault and was sentenced to 30 days in jail, suspended 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and mandatory in-person anger management and racial bias counseling. But Serafina wasn't finished. Marcus Thorne, on behalf of Aura Wing Airlines, filed a civil suit against Brenda Sullivan for damages, not for money. Serafina didn't need it. It was for breach of contract, gross negligence, and reputational harm to the brand. The suit sought $1.5 million. Brenda had no way to fight it. Her union, after viewing the video evidence, dropped her case. They called her actions indefensible. She was forced to declare bankruptcy. The court seized her assets, her condo in suburban Chicago, her car, her savings, all gone. Phase 2, the professional execution. The firing was immediate. Brenda and Thomas were terminated for cause in writing before Sarafina even left SFO. But Sarafina went further. She had her legal team notify the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) of the incident, complete with the assault conviction. The FAA promptly and permanently revoked Brenda Sullivan's flight attendant certificate of demonstrated proficiency. She was not just fired from Airline, she was barred from working as a flight attendant on any US carrier ever again. Her 20-year career hadn't just ended, it had been erased. She was also due to the conviction for in-flight assault placed on the federal no-fly list. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. The woman who had ruled the skies was now permanently grounded. Thomas, the junior attendant, fared slightly better, but not by much. He was also fired and lost his FAA certification for filing a false report. He was not charged criminally, but he was blacklisted from the industry. Phase 3, the public humiliation. Sarafina's team never leaked the story. They didn't have to. The student in 24A had also been recording. Her video shot from the window seat capturing the slap from a different horrifying angle was uploaded to TikTok before the plane even landed. It went viral. Karen flight attendant slaps passenger. 20 million views in 24 hours. Aviation blogs picked it up. Flyer talk. The Point Sky or a wing crew assaults passenger. Then the real story dropped. A source inside SFO leaked the arrest report. The passenger wasn't just any passenger. Flight attendant arrested for slapping Aruroing CEO Sarafina Jordan. It was on CNN, Fox News, Forbes, and the Daily Mail. Brenda Sullivan's name and her smug, unformed photo were plastered everywhere. She became the face of customer service from hell. Her neighbors recognized her. She was excoriated online, receiving thousands of hateful messages. She had to delete all her social media. She was a pariah. The karmic blowback was total. Brenda, now 45, bankrupt and unemployable in the only industry she had ever known, lost her home. She was forced to move into a grim studio apartment above a liquor store. Her friends from the airline, who had once laughed at her stories about difficult passengers, now pretended they never knew her. Her arrogance, her racism, her petty tyranny, it had all been building up for 20 years. And in one violent, idiotic moment, she had cashed it all in. She had slapped a billionaire. But worse, she had slapped a woman who refused to be bullied. She had slapped her own life into oblivion. The karma wasn't just hard, it was absolute. The incident on AW722 was not just an incident. It was an earthquake. The arrest of Brenda Sullivan and the revelation that the assaulted passenger was the airline's owner was the single most cataclysmic event in Aurowing's 40-year history. The TikTok video had garnered 50 million views before the legal team could even file a takedown request, which Sarafina ordered them to retract. "Leave it up," she'd commanded, her voice raw. "Let them see it. Let all of our employees see what I see. We don't hide from this. We confront it." The stock price plummeted 12% in a single day, wiping out over $400 million in market capitalization. The media was a feeding frenzy. Aviation analysts predicted a full-blown crisis of consumer confidence. Sarafina Jordan, however, didn't see a crisis. She saw an opportunity. She had found the cancer, and it was time to perform the surgery. She called an emergency all-hands-on-deck virtual town hall for 48 hours later. It was mandatory. Every single one of the company's 40,000 employees was required to log in, from pilots on layover in Hong Kong to corporate accountants in Chicago. The virtual auditorium filled with a dreadful electric silence. The chat log, usually bustling with permeating jokes and greetings, was a dead scroll. 40,000 people stared at an empty stage at the single stark Aura Wing logo and waited. Sarafina walked out from the wings of the headquarters auditorium. There was no introductory music, No head of HR to warm up the crowd, just the sound of her heels on the wooden stage. The cameras zoomed in. She was not in a power suit. She wore a simple sleeveless black turtleneck and grey trousers. She wore no makeup. The fading yellowish-purple bruise on her cheekbone was visible to everyone. The small healing cut on her lip was a stark red line. She looked less like a CEO and more like a warrior after a battle. She stood at a simple lectern, but she didn't touch it. She gripped the microphone, and her voice, calm and cold, filled the silence. "Good morning," she began. 2 days ago, I was on Flight 722 from Chicago to San Francisco. I was in seat 24B. I was wearing this. She gestured to a grey hoodie identical to the one from the flight, which was folded neatly on the lectern. I was a passenger on my own airline, and I was denied service. I was lied to. I was slandered. I was threatened. And I was physically assaulted by a 20-year senior flight attendant. She let that hang in the air. 40,000 people held their breath. Many of you have seen the video. You saw the slap. You've read the headlines. And I know what many of you are thinking. That was one bad employee. That was a terrible, isolated incident. Brenda Sullivan was a monster. She shook her head. You're wrong. Brenda Sullivan was not a monster. She was a symptom. She was the predictable, inevitable result of a toxic, corrosive, and lazy culture that this company has tolerated for far too long. A culture of apathy. She began to pace. Brenda Sullivan didn't become a bully overnight. She became a bully over 20 years. She became a bully because supervisors looked the other way. She became a bully because her colleagues were too intimidated or too indifferent to file a report. She became a bully because passengers who did complain were sent a $50 voucher, and their letters were filed in a circular bin. And what about Mr. Thomas, the junior attendant? He wasn't a bully. He was something just as dangerous a bystander. He stood there while I was harassed. He said nothing. And when it came time to tell the truth to the police, he chose to protect his abuser rather than the victim. He chose the easy lie over the hard truth. That is the culture I'm talking about. Her voice rose, gaining a hard, righteous edge. This isn't a flight attendant problem. This is an aura wing problem. To our pilots, she said, looking directly into the main camera. How many of you have pulled rank at a gate? How many of you have treated a flight attendant, a gate agent, or a passenger as less than because you have 4 stripes on your shoulder? You are not gods. You are pilots. The new rules apply to you too. To our gate agents, she continued. How many of you have profiled a passenger, smiled at the man in the Tom Ford suit, and scowled at the family with the stroller? How many of you have decided who is worthy and who is a problem before they even speak? You are the face of this airline, and your bias is the first wound our passengers feel. And to my corporate team, she said, her voice dropping. To every executive and manager, every single passenger complaint that ended in a form letter was a missed opportunity. Every difficult employee who was just shuffled to a different route, instead of being disciplined, was a landmine you failed to defuse. Brenda Sullivan's file should have been a mile long, but it was pristine. You failed. You failed in your duty to protect our passengers, and you failed in your duty to protect our brand. She walked back to the lectern. The failure stops now. Today, we are not turning a new leaf. We are burning the whole rotten forest down and planting something new, effective immediately. We are partnering with the Institute for Inclusive Service. This is not a 2-hour webinar. This is a mandatory 3-day in-person re-certification program for everyone from me to our chief counsel, to our most senior pilot, to our newest baggage handler. You will be put in simulations. You will be confronted with your own biases. You will learn to de-escalate, not by asserting authority, but by practicing humanity. Anyone who fails this certification will not have a job at Aurawing. I don't care if you've been here 40 years or 40 days. Second, we are launching the Aura Clear reporting system. It is anonymous. It is run by an external neutral ethics firm. It is not an HR complaint box. It is a direct line. If you see anyone, a colleague, a supervisor, a captain, an executive acting with bias, aggression, or hostility, you report it. I have created a new 3-person independent review board that includes a member of my personal office. Every single report will be read. Every single one will be investigated. The bystanders are now accountable. Silence is complicity, and complicity will be treated as participation. She looked at the hoodie on the lectern. This hoodie is now a symbol. It represents every passenger who isn't a platinum medallion member. It represents every person who walks onto our planes and just wants to be treated with a baseline of human dignity. For 20 years, we failed them. We treated them as cargo. We treated them as unworthy. As of today, she concluded, her voice ringing with absolute finality. This is the new Aura Wing. We will be the airline that is defined by respect. We will be the airline that leads in service, not in arrogance. And we will do this, or I will sell this company for parts. The choice is yours. Get on board or get out of the way. That is all. She turned and walked off the stage, the feed cut to black. 40,000 employees sat in stunned silence. It was not a speech. It was a declaration of war on the old way. The implementation was as brutal and swift as her speech. In the executive boardroom, the 60-year-old COO, Robert Walsh, made the mistake of challenging her. "Sarafina," he said, his voice placating. "This is comprehensive, but a mandatory 3-day re-certification for 40,000 employees. That's $1 billion expenditure in lost work hours and training costs. The shareholders will revolt. This is a massive overcorrection for one unfortunate incident." Sarafina, who was at the head of the table, slowly put down her pen. She gestured to an aide who tapped a laptop. The main screen lit up not with the TikTok video, but with a dozen news tickers. CNN or a wing in free fall. CEO assaulted stock creators. Forbes, the $400 million slap, or a wing's culture of contempt. Fox News. Woke airline CEO gets taste of her own unruly skies. That one unfortunate incident. Robert Sarafina said, her voice terrifyingly quiet. Has a price tag. The overcorrection, as you call it, is an investment. It's the cost of earning back the trust I just paid $400 million to lose. This is not a negotiation. The training budget is approved. I signed it this morning. She looked around the table. I hired you to help me fix this company. Brenda Sullivan was the symptom. The disease is apathy. It's the belief that good enough is acceptable. It's you, Robert, worrying more about the cost of training than the cost of failure. The training starts Monday. You are in the first group. Either pass it or pack your desk. Am I clear? Robert Walsh, a 30-year veteran of the industry, just nodded. Crystal clear, Ms. Jordan. The Aura Clear system was the next shockwave. 3 months after its launch, a report came in. A senior pilot, Captain Gregory Mason, had verbally abused a new gate agent in Dallas, cutting a long line of passengers and sneering, "Do you know who I am? I don't wait for children." The incident was corroborated by airport CCTV. The old Aura Wing would have given the captain a quiet slap on the wrist. The new Aura Wing, under Sarafina's direct orders, grounded Captain Mason for 2 weeks without pay. He was forced into the 3-day sensitivity training, which he had previously skipped, claiming simulator duties, and was given a final written warning. His pilots' union filed a grievance. Sarafina's legal team, led by Marcus Thorne, refused to budge, citing the new corporate code of conduct. The grievance was dropped. The message was unmistakable. The days of gods in the cockpit were over. A full year passed. The training was grueling, expensive, and effective. Hundreds of employees, mostly long tenure ones who couldn't or wouldn't adapt, were let go. The stock price had slowly, painfully climbed back up. The media narrative had shifted from airline in crisis to the toughest turnaround in aviation. Sarafina was on a flight again. AW410 from Dallas to LA. She was in coach seat 19C and aisle. She was in a simple blue dress, but her presence was felt. The crew knew who she was. She watched, saying nothing. A passenger in row 20, A young man accidentally fumbled his cup, sending a full 12 Oz of dark soda splashing across the aisle and onto the trousers of the man next to him. It was a moment primed for conflict. The passenger was mortified. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." The man with the wet trousers looked furious, about to erupt. Before he could, a flight attendant named Chloe was there. She didn't sigh. She didn't roll her eyes. She moved in with a bright, genuine smile, armed with towels and club soda. "Oh goodness," she said, her voice a balm of calm. "That's the worst, isn't it?" "Don't you worry one bit. It's just soda." She handed towels to the spiller. "Here you go." Then she knelt in the aisle next to the wet passenger. "Sir, let's get you cleaned up. Club soda will take that right out. And you know it's not a real flight until someone redecorates the carpet, right?" The angry passenger, disarmed by her kindness and humor, actually chuckled. "Yeah, I guess so. Let me get you some extra napkins," Chloe continued. "And I'll tell you what the next drink is on me. Or 3, whatever you need." She cleaned up the mess quickly, professionally, and with a humanity that was so profound it was almost invisible. She hadn't asserted authority. She had shared in the awkwardness and solved the problem. She had treated both passengers with dignity. She then got to Serafina's row. "Mom," she said, her smile just as warm. Not a hint of fear in her eyes. "Can I get you anything to drink? We have a fresh pot of coffee, or perhaps some juice. Coffee black would be wonderful." "Thank you, Chloe," Serafina said. She sipped the coffee. It was hot strong, and it tasted like victory. As for Brenda Sullivan, her free fall had been absolute. After her assault conviction and bankruptcy, she was a pariah. She was not just fired, she was, as one industry blog put it, vaporized. Her FAA license was permanently revoked. She was on the no-fly list. She tried to get other jobs. She applied to be a hotel concierge. The manager Googled her name during the interview. "I'm sorry, Miss Sullivan," he'd said, his face suddenly cold. "The position has been filled." She tried to get a job in high-end retail. The background check flagged her assault conviction. "We can't have you as a liability around our clients," she was told. Her friends from the airline, the ones who used to laugh at her stories, had long since ghosted her. She was now 46, living in a studio apartment above a liquor store in a part of Milwaukee she used to fly over without a second thought. She had one job, the only one she could get. A travel blogger driving through at 3 a.m. stopped at a 24-hour gas station for coffee. He looked at the cashier, a woman with hollow eyes, a stained red smock, and a face that looked 20 years older than it should. Her plastic name badge read, Brenda. A grumpy trucker in front of him slammed his items on the counter. "Hurry it up, lady. I ain't got all night." The blogger watched, recognizing her instantly. He saw the old fire flash in Brenda's eyes, the instinct to snap, to assert power, to put this man in his place. He saw her open her mouth, and then he saw it die. She couldn't. She needed this 40 missed-an-hour job. Brenda Sullivan looked down at the counter. Her voice was flat dead. "That'll be $45, sir." The blogger paid for his coffee and left. He posted the photo later. "Karma, thy name is 3:00 a.m. at a quick E-Mart." The photo went viral. A final pathetic postscript. Brenda, the woman who had ruled her silver kingdom in the sky with an iron fist, was now grounded, permanently forced to serve coffee in the dead of night. Her power, her career, and her life all reduced to the cold, fluorescent hum of a gas station she could never, ever fly away from. The karma had not just landed, it had buried her. And that is the catastrophic fall of Brenda Sullivan. This story isn't just about a Karen getting what she deserved. It's a real-world lesson in power. Brenda thought power was her uniform. She thought it was the ability to deny someone a coffee, to humiliate them, to wield small rules like a weapon. She never understood what real power is. Serafina Jordan knew. Real power isn't bullying those below you. Real power is having the ability to end the bullies. It's the power to change an entire toxic culture. Brenda's slap wasn't just an assault on a passenger. It was a slap in the face of the one woman who could and would hold her accountable on every possible level, legally, financially, and professionally. What did you think of Serafina's response? Was it too harsh? Or was it the exact karmic justice Brenda deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of drama and hard karma, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want to hear more stories just like this, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Thank you for listening.